Let's talk about Judd Anderson. So Judd Anderson just competed at Elite 11 Atlanta. So Brian, let's start with the football stuff with Judd before we talk about some of the off the field stuff, because I know he makes an impression on people with his personality and his leadership as well. Let's start with the throwing mechanics. What were the good and the bad you saw from Judd up there in the ATL?
I just told somebody this a little bit ago, very consistent with his delivery over the top. And just to be clear, a lot of kids, their size is listed at X, and you're like, yeah, I just saw that guy. He's nowhere near that tall. He's 6'7".
Right.
He is humongous. I asked Judd how much he weighed. He said on Friday he weighed in at 223, and he's lean. It was funny. There were a couple kids listed at like 6'3", 6'4" that he was standing next to. They looked like dwarfs. It was hilarious. I was like, man, I didn't have a hard time picking him out anywhere. Didn't even look for shoes or anything. You just knew who he was. The only thing that I didn't like was early on, he aimed the ball a little bit. He just kind of got into the water slowly. After we got past about the 10, 15% mark of the event, he let it rip, and he was much better.
Good.
I don't really think there's a more competitive kid. He was on himself and everybody else pushing everybody, and everybody there likes him. He's from the central part of Georgia. There's a lot of Georgia quarterbacks that were at the Elite 11, and they all knew him. They all liked him. Everybody worked with him. He was great with the counselors. I think that with his delivery and his attitude, he's only played 1 year as the main quarterback, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
His upside is tremendous. He's a developmental kid, but his upside is tremendous. I just want to see him play live now. I'm going to go see him, at least plan to go see him play against Warner Robins, which is one of the best programs in the country, in October. It's October 27th. That'll tell me more. I know he can throw in a camp setting now, because by the end of it, I didn't even pay attention to Judd. I didn't need to. I knew his delivery was very consistent. So now it's just about seeing whether he can take the hit and still make the throw. It's the bottom line with a quarterback. So I like him. And for anybody that hasn't met him, you will not meet a better young man. He's the kind of guy somebody would want his daughter to date. So that's probably the best way I can put it.
Could you get any sense in these workouts on his quickness and mobility?
I was surprised. I knew he played basketball, but one of the things they do, and it works against you no matter if you're right or left-handed, you will roll out against your body and turn and throw. I thought, 6'7" guy, this probably isn't going to look real good. He was fine. I was like, hey, okay, that's a really good sign. He's a much more limber kid than what I anticipated him to be, and that bodes well, because every now and then, those little short passes of the flat, they'll roll a guy out just to get the 4 yard. You could still miss those, and he didn't have any problems with it. So I stock up on the mobility chart for Mr. Judd Anderson.
How similar is he to Emory Williams, who's just arriving at Miami this year? Are there comparisons to be made, or anything maybe he does that Emory doesn't do so well, or vice versa?
I would say the only difference, they are very similar. The only difference is Emory was a little more confident because he'd been the guy a little longer at the same point. When I saw him at Elite 11, then went to watching practice last year up at his high school, he was completely dialed in. He was the leader of the program. Everybody trusted in him. Judd is just now starting to take that point. My answer now, probably 100% different than what it would be when I go see him play against Warner Robins in October. There's a difference. And I talked to him a little bit yesterday through Twitter about the offense they're going to run, the things they're going to do. And he's really excited about it. And the reason, I don't blame him, the quarterback in this offense they're going to be operating is the same one that Fromm ran, the kid that played at Georgia. Yeah. And it's the same one pretty much like Tennessee is. The coach that had Fromm is now at Jones County High School where Anderson's at, and they're going to go vertical. That's what he does well. Anyway, arm strength's not going to be a problem. So I'm really curious to see it, and he was excited about it. He needs to kind of own it that I'm going to beat you. That's the only thing about him. And again, he's only played 1 year, so it's not shocking. And in comparison, Emory, he believed in it, and he was super accurate. And he let it rip. He didn't care. That's the next step for Judd. And then you get to Miami and you change your body in the weight room, and that'll take care of itself.
By the way, I encourage everyone to check out allhurricanes.com because Brian wrote a very detailed review of what he saw from Judd Anderson and the other quarterbacks at Elite 11 Atlanta as well. And so, yeah, Brian, you talked a little bit about the personality. But I think the last thing I want to get into on Judd is how did he compare to some of the other top quarterbacks that were out there? Aaron Noland, who's used to be my boy, he's dead to me now because he committed to Ohio State, but he was out there as well. How does Judd look compared to some of these others?
Judd is a different quarterback in terms of the size. Like he's hard to compare to a lot of guys because he's just so big. Air is a precision passer. He doesn't always let it rip. That's the knock on him, but his delivery and his accuracy is ridiculous. So for a high school kid, especially, and he's got a year left. His delivery is better than some NFL quarterbacks. There's no question about it. He was definitively the best player there in the senior class, and he was the only one to get the invite. I think he'll be able to play at Ohio State, and I think he'll be pretty darn good. For the record, I walked into the event with Air. Miami was second, Alabama was third. So I don't think he's going to flip. He's pretty dialed in, but great kid and good luck to him. I think that if I had to compare Judd to anybody, Emory's as good a fit as you could. There's not a kid that was there that I would compare him like the styles that much because he's so much bigger, but he's a little bit like this. Look at it this way. Tyler Van Dyke with more mobility is his upside.
Okay.
And he's only played 1 year of high school, so his evaluation has just started. I've done 5% of what I need to because there's not enough to evaluate yet. Yeah. This next year, I'll have a 2,000-word article on it because I'll be able to see him at a game, and I will literally film every single throw that he makes. Until then, we're talking about a kid that's a big piece of clay, and Shannon Dawson, I know flat out, is excited about him, and they can't wait to get him in to the University of Miami and get working with him.